Hey there, friend. I'm truly grateful you've taken a moment out of your day to check out this video. And if you hit that subscribe button, well, that'd be icing on the cake. Let's get started. My name is Harold Beckett. I'm 63 years old. For most of my life, I worked behind the scenes in urban development. I was the kind of man who oiled hinges before they squeaked and warmed up the car on winter mornings so his wife wouldn't feel the chill. Her name was Dana. At least that's who she used to be. The woman I once imagined sharing my twilight years with. She tolerated my dry jokes and folded my socks with care, like some kind of domestic art. But people change, sometimes slowly, sometimes quietly. And now and then they leave traces behind. One Tuesday I stumbled on one of those traces. I was out in the backyard, tinkering with a dusty old fishing reel and nursing a cup of cold coffee when my phone buzzed. A message from Dana. Nothing seemed unusual at first, just her name and that familiar notification sound she saved for the grandkids or when she needed the credit card. I almost ignored it, but something made me check. He's such an idiot. He's never going to leave us. United States? Not him, not me. United States? As if I'd become white noise, like some faithful old mutt too oblivious to realize he'd been replaced. Then another text came through. Oops, wrong person. Not an apology, not even a lie to soften the blow, just oops, like she'd sent the wrong emoji or dropped a pen. That careless word was her confession, a typo-sized betrayal. I didn't hurl the phone or shout. I sat there, reel in hand, letting the silence unravel like fishing line off a spool. Because in that moment, something deep within me shifted. Suddenly, the inconsistencies of the past few years weren't so innocent. The late-night outings, the book clubs that never mentioned books, the unfamiliar fragrance that clung to her coat, the yoga mat that came back as dry as it left. Everything snapped into place with cold, precise logic, like blueprints, something I knew well in my old profession. I typed a reply. "Want to bet?" Then I took a screenshot. I tucked it away in a folder labeled roofing estimates and deleted the messages. That was the exact moment my quiet obedience ended. From that day forward, my silence had intent. She walked through the door around 10:30 that night, bringing with her the scent of Cabernet, expensive lotion, and someone else's cologne. She kissed me on the forehead like I was a distant relative in a hospital bed. "How was your day, sweetheart?" she asked with practiced sweetness. "Not much," I replied. "Puttered around in the garage, cleaned up some old fishing gear." She smiled, that condescending kind of grin people reserve for quaint, harmless things. Then she headed upstairs, heels clicking like ellipses trailing off a sentence. She didn't know the rules had changed, but I did. I wasn't playing checkers anymore. Anger doesn't plan. Patience does. Stillness does. The next morning, Dana was cheerful over her coffee, her lipstick perfect. Makeup applied a little too well for yoga. She used to scoff at yoga, called it glorified stretching for people afraid of treadmills. Now she was suddenly a regular. And when she came home, it wasn't sweat on her. It was the glow of being seen. "You're looking dedicated," I said, as she dabbed lipstick at the toaster. She turned halfway. "Dedicated?" "To staying fit," I answered lightly. "Strong core, strong life." She laughed, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. Her expression cracked for just a second. Like someone walking over a bridge they know they set on fire, praying the smoke stays behind them. I was paying attention now. 2 wine glasses in the dishwasher, one bearing a lipstick shade she never wore with me. Calamari in the fridge, even though she's always hated the stuff. A scarf I didn't recognize, earrings I never bought, and just the faintest trace of cologne on her coat that definitely wasn't mine. She was getting sloppy. I didn't confront her. I went out to the garage. At the back of the safe was an old cigar box, bound in electrical tape. I hadn't touched it in over 10 years. Inside, one card. Ren Wallace. A fixer. Quiet. Efficient. Operated in the gray. Years back, he'd helped me sideline a corrupt contractor draining city funds. I sent a message. "Still in business?" 3 seconds later, Depends who's asking, I replied with the screenshot. Harold Beckett, I need a clean trail. 2 locations, 7 days, solid proof. He sent back a single thumbs-up emoji. That night, Dana returned with the usual act. Worn-out smile, empty chatter, shoes by the door. How was your night? She asked, unaware I already knew her path, from Franklin Street to that condo on Caldwell Avenue. Uneventful, I replied, sipping chamomile I didn't even like. Been thinking about fishing again. She blinked. You haven't fished in years. Exactly. She hummed something under her breath, Fleetwood Mac. Said that band used to make her feel young, but it wasn't about youth, it was about feeling visible again. I understood. I used to make her feel that way, back in '91. The next morning, a delivery arrived. Plain manila envelope, no name. Inside, a lead fishing sinker, a nod only Wren would make, and 8 photos, glossy, irrefutable. Dana, hair neatly pinned, smiling into a wine glass like she used to with me. Seated next to a man, sharp suit, salt and pepper hair, politician's grin, his hand on her back, another image, him kissing her hand like she was some aristocrat. And the final nail, Dana stepping out of his place just after dawn, damp hair, smudged lipstick, blouse buttons misaligned. I didn't throw the photos in her face. I arranged them like architectural plans, not for a fight, for construction. They went straight into our estate planning binder under emergency contacts. I zipped it shut and called Jared Klein, our financial advisor. Jared, I said, I need to split our assets. Quietly, no notifications. A pause. Is everything all right, Harold? Just taking precautions. Storms don't always give warnings. I changed every login, revoked her access, split the investments, left no digital footprints. Then I returned to the garage and stared at a coil of 80-pound test line labeled Stinger hooks. Meant for hard fighters. Dana was a fighter. But she'd already taken the bait. She just didn't realize it yet. And the cruelest part? I wasn't angry anymore. I was just clear. The next day, Alice Geller called me, legal consultant, razor sharp. Scarier than most attorneys twice her age. You familiar with the name Riley Carrick? She asked casually. I paused. It's familiar. Should be. He's the guy sleeping with your wife. A heavy silence followed. She doesn't know we've spoken, right? Alice asked, sipping her coffee like it burned. No, I answered. And she doesn't know he was once blacklisted, back when I sat on the ethics board. Alice gave a low, wicked laugh. Well, he's about to be nominated for a major public role. That's when everything snapped into focus. This wasn't about lust. It wasn't a midlife fling. Riley wasn't just some smooth talker with a fat wallet and flattery. He had a purpose. And Dana, she wasn't his partner. She was leverage. A marionette dressed to impress. Do you think he has the faintest clue who I am? I asked. Not even remotely, she answered. In that case, I murmured, let's enlighten him. Alice leaned in just slightly. Dinner? I nodded. Marlowe's Thursday, just us. I'll handle the reservation, she said, low-key, but it needs to hum with the message, I see it all. Her grin widened. Darling, that describes most of my wardrobe. Marlowe's wasn't loud. It breathed. The jazz didn't play so much as it lingered, curling through the atmosphere like incense. The staff moved like phantoms, silent and precise in monochrome. Not a wrinkle on the table linens, not a footfall out of place. Dana once scoffed at it. Too pretentious, she claimed. But after Riley began bringing her, it magically ascended to favorite status. I arrived 15 minutes early. A habit. Wore the navy button-down Dana gave me last week. Part of another truce in the wake of another betrayal. She said it felt like me, though she never remembered how I hated that color. Too mature, I used to say. We laughed about it once, back when laughter wasn't strained, but tonight, it was my armor. Alice appeared right on time, looking like she had shares in every tower we could see. Heels like daggers, silk the color of dried blood, jewelry that whispered instead of shouted. She sat across from me with a measured smile. You seem rested. Sleep's been easier, I said. Guilt is heavier than honesty. We shared a bottle, traded harmless anecdotes, and waited. At 7:08 they arrived. Riley in a tailored suit that practically smirked, one arm draped at Dana's lower back like he owned her. Dana, in scarlet, radiant, polished to perfection, pearls gleaming beneath the lights. She looked composed until she saw us. The change was immediate. Her smile faltered, her posture went taut. She leaned toward Riley and whispered, hurried. His eyes scanned, stopped, landed on Alice, then me. And that was the moment it all caught up with him. This wasn't just exposure, it was proximity to destruction. The woman who could derail his campaign, the man who used to write zoning loopholes like poetry. There were 2 tables between us, but the space felt like a courtroom, silent, sharp, inescapable. "Too far?" I asked, voice low. Alice touched her napkin to her lips without glancing up. "If it were too far," she said coolly, "he'd be bleeding." Riley tried to feign ease, but his knuckles whitened around the menu like it was a flotation device. Dana, unraveling thread by thread, clutched her glass like a lifeline. Her jaw clenched, her practiced smile fractured. Each time Alice laughed, really laughed at something I said, Dana's eyes sharpened to knives. Riley stood, headed our way. I met his stride with a look and a barely perceptible shake of my head. "Not tonight," I said, firm but calm. "This table's for adults." He halted mid-step, suspended in the space between wounded pride and public failure, then turned and slinked back to his seat, red-faced. We continued as if nothing had shifted. Talked shop, her firm's growth, my greenhouse plans, the rezoning project in Barton Hills. Across the room, Dana didn't touch her food, but she never looked away. She hadn't been stolen. She'd bartered. Attention from an empty man in exchange for a future built with care. By the time dessert came, Riley stood again. His expression screamed confrontation. This time, I didn't flinch. "Still no," I told him. Alice remained motionless, no glance, no reaction. Her silence echoed louder than any dismissal. Riley hesitated, then marched out past the hostess stand like a monarch abandoning a sinking kingdom. Dana didn't chase him. She stayed rigid. Alice raised her glass. "Executed to perfection." "It wasn't revenge," I said. "It was a mirror." That night, I slept like someone who owed no apologies. The next morning unfolded quietly. No perfume in the air, no red wine breath, no distant saxophone, just the rhythm of birds and the low gurgle of the coffee machine. At 10, while watering tomatoes on the balcony, my phone vibrated. Dana's name lit up the screen, no longer a source of dread. I let it ring once, twice, 3 times, then answered. "Harold," she said. Her voice was thin, breaking apart. "You knew." Silence. "You always knew, didn't you?" I kept my tone level. "Knew what, Dana?" She hesitated, calculating whether there was space for another lie. "You staged that. You wanted to humiliate me. Was that fun for you?" I exhaled slowly. "You humiliated yourself the moment you hit send. Everything since then? Just aftermath." I heard the sob she tried to hide behind her breath. I didn't twist the knife, but I didn't soften either. "What now?" she asked. A butterfly coasted past the window like punctuation. "Now we see what's left standing when the smoke clears." At noon, a courier arrived at her door with a thick envelope. Inside, finalized separation paperwork, revised financials, asset division. Nothing bitter, just closure, delivered in black and white. 23 minutes later, the calls started coming in. I declined each one. Then came the message. "You can't do this. This isn't who you are. We should talk. Please, Harold." Another followed. "You erased me." I paused. The irony was almost theatrical. She had erased me slowly, line by line, between Thursday night lies and the kisses she borrowed from someone else. I hadn't erased her. She wrote herself out. Then the final message. "You think this is justice?" My reply was brief. "You should have double-checked your recipients." Silence followed. Whether it was understanding or defeat, I didn't know. That night, the stars seemed clearer. The house felt lighter. Memories came back clean, unsmudged by the fog she left behind. I didn't feel victorious. I felt restored. Dana moved in with her sister. Riley's nomination vanished, as if it had never existed. Alice worked quietly, nudged the right people, surfaced the wrong records, ethics breaches, hidden accounts, shady contracts. It all emerged. A week later, I met Alice and Miranda, Riley's former wife, at a quiet cafe with a broken clock and strong coffee. Miranda's eyes held a storm and a steel calm, the kind only courtroom veterans develop. She didn't gloat, just slid a folder across the table. Inside, receipts, transfers, shell companies, corruption in black ink. "He's finished," she said. Alice raised her espresso. "To old allies." I lifted my cup. "To consequences." Time moved. Marlowe's faded into yesterday. Riley's name disappeared from every public board. His professional profile was a ghost, smiling, hollow. And Dana? Still at her sister's. A yoga mat she didn't unroll. A reduced life, shrinking into borrowed space and truth she couldn't rewrite. The place that used to be my sanctuary, once shared with someone who drifted into unfamiliarity, had fallen into stillness. Not an empty or abandoned stillness, but one that felt intentional, settled, even peaceful. Most mornings I found myself out back, pruning mint and basil, watching squirrels scuffle and sprint across the fence line, locked in their endless contests for crumbs. The silence had shifted. It no longer rang with absence, but hummed with a kind of gentle closure. The refrigerator no longer whispered secrets. The dishwasher stopped hinting at glasses used for someone else. The scent of fresh laundry was just that, clean, ordinary, no longer tinged with the perfume of a stranger. Then, one overcast Thursday, rain pattering against the windows, a knock came. Not a doorbell, not an intercom buzz, a knock, measured and intentional. I opened the door carefully. Dana stood there, rain-slicked and trembling. Her hair clung to her cheeks, her cardigan barely holding against the cold. She looked like she'd walked through a storm, both literal and emotional. Her fingers shook slightly, her eyes raw and rimmed with red. Not from the weather. "Can we talk?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. I didn't answer right away. "Please," she added, her voice breaking. I moved aside, not out of uncertainty but conviction. I let her step in, prepared to hear whatever narrative she'd built alone. She entered like a guest in a room preserved from another life, familiar but unreachable. The couch hadn't changed. The shelves still held her paperbacks, the ones about love and longing, now collecting dust like relics. Her eyes rested on them before turning to meet mine. "I messed up," she murmured. "No," I said quietly. "You were just thinking only of yourself." She winced, as though struck, but I hadn't touched her. Some truths cut sharper than any blade. "I didn't expect it to go that far," she said. "In the beginning, he made me feel like I mattered." "You were always performing," I said. "The silence wasn't what drove you away. It was your cue, the yoga sessions, the foreign fragrances, the late-night errands that stretched past 11. I noticed, Dana. I saw every piece fall into place. I just didn't speak, because I was watching you make your choice, one small betrayal at a time." Tears welled in her eyes. "I didn't want to hurt you." I let out a soft, weary laugh. Not cruel, just resigned. "But you did," I said. "Every Thursday, like a ritual. You brought that pain home, wearing the scent of someone else. That wasn't an accident. It was a map you followed." She sank into the old armchair and looked smaller than I remembered. Not fragile, simply less. "Do you love her?" she asked, barely audible. I paused. "Who? Alice, Miranda, whoever it was I saw with you?" I sat across from her. "I trust them. I respect them. They never lied to me for a year straight. They helped me find the version of myself I'd misplaced." She looked down. "I've lost everything. I said nothing. Her eyes scanned the room like a traveler wandering through a place she used to know. They landed on the mantel, a silver-framed photo from our wedding, sunlight streaking through our smiles, fingers entwined in laughter. "Why didn't you fight for us?" she asked. "I did," I said. "You just didn't notice the way I did it. You lied. I told the truth. You took chances with our love. I tried to protect it." Dana exhaled shakily. "So that's it then?" I nodded. "That's it." She rose slowly, burdened by the weight of finality. "Can I at least say goodbye?" "You already did," I replied, "the night you chose someone else." She didn't cry. Dana only cried when her tears were currency. She turned toward the door, paused in the frame. "I miss what we had." I tilted my head. "You miss the version of me who let it slide. He's gone. You helped bury him." She stepped into the rain. She didn't glance back. Time passed. Marlowe's had changed. The lighting was warmer now, candles flickered on the tables, and the wine list had been curated for the season. Alice said the new design was to create a sense of comfort. I liked it. Less showmanship, more sincerity. Miranda and I met there again. She wore green, calm, flowing, with ease. Her laughter carried new life, her stories had color again. She was painting, portraits, open skies, even lakes she hadn't seen since her marriage unraveled. I told her about the greenhouse, how the tomatoes were coming in, about the impromptu fishing trips I no longer had to excuse with carefully edited stories. She reached into her bag and slid an envelope across the table. "Closure," she said. Inside were clippings, articles, headlines, fragments of consequence. Riley's business had folded, a civil settlement, assets exposed. He called it restructuring. No one bought it. "Feel like justice was served?" she asked. I took a long sip of red wine, letting silence respond first. "Not justice, just release." She lifted her glass. "To clarity." I raised mine. "To checking twice before sending anything." And we laughed. Not out of spite, but out of understanding. Some endings come with slammed doors, courtrooms, shouting matches. But the real endings, the ones that last, they arrive softly. Through signatures on paper, through photos that no longer deceive, through the quiet grace of truth revealed over time. The deepest kind of closure doesn't roar. It exhales. And that's where this story rests. Thank you for walking through it with me. If it touched something in you, there's more waiting. Until next time, friend.